Guys, welcome to the First Responder Playbook. I'm here with my guest, Mark Mowbray. Mark, not going to do it justice, so I'm going to let you give your own intro and tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, um, I think you probably could do a better job than what you give yourself credit for. Um, but I started my professional career, I guess you'd say, right out of high school. Spent about a year or so unsure what I wanted to do with my life, but I knew I needed some direction. I knew that I needed some purpose. So I joined the Marine Corps right out of high school. It took me a little bit to get there, but I worked it out. Um, spent some time in the Marine Corps. Then I did my second enlistment. I reenlisted, did that in the Army, spent some more time in the Army, um, worked in corrections, in and out. I did some reserve time while I was in the military. So, uh, did some time in corrections, um, in between my interdepartmental transfer. So when I reenlisted and crossed over to the Army, I didn't have to resign. So I held my position there. Um, Within the state with the Department of Corrections. So, that ended up helping me out a lot. Once I finally did get out, um, I've worked everything from a CO, corrections officer, all the way up to lieutenant, to my most recent position as a captain down in Florida. So I'm on patrol now. When I left corrections, I went to patrol, went to the highway patrol, did several years there. And then that's what led me to my relocation down to Florida. Did another year down there as a cop. Um, Took that captain's position while I was down there. Did some time at the local jail there, and then ultimately transferred back up here. And I'm back on patrol, doing some other things too on the side. But that's where I'm at as far as that goes.
Where are you originally from?
I'm from Ohio.
Ohio.
Yeah,
Okay.
born and raised in Ohio. Outside of being stationed outside of Ohio with the military and things like that, it's pretty much where I've been my entire life.
Awesome. So, Marine Corps out of high school, with the year break in between, what led you to the Marine Corps?
Direction, man, purpose. So I'm actually writing a book right now, and I kind of dive pretty deep into that. But not to tell the whole story here, but um, the Marine Corps wasn't necessarily my first pick. When I walked in the recruiter's office, my first thought was, I'm gonna go talk to the Navy. Really, the only knowledge I had up to that point was, my uncle and my dad who had served in the Navy, so I had a little bit of understanding, but nothing in depth. I spent about a whole 3 minutes in the Navy recruitment office and realized I don't think this is the right path for me. Uh, so I walked out and looked in the Army office and didn't even go in there initially. But then the Marine Corps office was tucked in the back, and something pulled me that way, man. So that's kind of what led me there. But the Marine Corps is a different breed for sure.
No, they have two different basic training camps, one on the West Coast and one on the East Coast. I'm assuming you did East Coast?
Yeah, Parris Island.
Okay.
Yep.
Uh, what time of the year did you go down to South Carolina?
June, July, and well, yeah, June, July, and August. Yeah,
A little bit warm and sticky?
you can't even imagine, bro. It's just like the Parris Island in July, man. Like Trace Atkins said,
How long did you do in the Marine Corps?
4 years.
4 years. Um, Now, did you say that after you got out, that's when you got into corrections?
Yeah, man. So I actually was doing some reserve time there at the end, and that's kind of when I started corrections. So when I went to when I was first joined corrections, I was still in the Marine Corps Reserves, and kind of just remained there. You know what I mean? Until I decided that to go back active duty, crossed over to the Army, and then like I said, I had already secured that position. So with the state, as far as that goes, I didn't have to resign my position. That's a thing. So that worked out for me definitely in the long run.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
You
man.
know, Starting out of the reserve, I feel like a lot of times in law enforcement, full-time guys look down on reserves as people that just work parades and, come out and do a ride along every now and then. But, I kinda grew up around the sheriff's office, and, uh, reserves do the things that full-time guys don't wanna do because they want to get out and serve. And I've always had a soft spot for reserves because they want to actually be out there. Like, they're doing it for most times no pay. They probably provide all their own equipment. Um, I have a soft spot for reserves 'cause I feel like they're out there just actually doing it for the purest of reasons. They wanna actually serve.
Are you talking you're talking about, like, law enforcement, like police officer
Yes,
reserves?
yes.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, I'm right there with you, man. I see the same thing, especially at my level where I'm at, work with a lot of villages and, volunteer departments and stuff like that, and you're right, man. You can see that passion, but ultimately, man, that passion gets stepped on, dude. It's hard to do something like that voluntarily over and over for years, and, little appreciation, little respect, like you said, if these other agencies are kinda looking down and, that's their perspective, that's the way they see it, then, obviously that passion burns out, it's the unfortunate part of it, but you're right. I think you're right.
Yep. So, corrections. Man, I'm just gonna be honest with you. What state did you do your corrections work in?
Ohio.
Ohio.
Yeah.
Um, I've always had a affinity for, like, I feel like if you start in the jail, you learn how to talk with people and talk with people correctly pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And it translates 1000% to the street work because,
Yeah.
um, people will mess you up in a heartbeat if you talk to them disrespectfully.
Yeah, that's
Um,
fact.
and it's an underpaid job for what they have to deal with. I've said for a long time, you couldn't pay me to work in the jail, and not because I know it's not for me. The people that actually go in there day in and day out and do it, like, that's awesome, and they don't get paid enough because
Right.
they're dealing with the worst of the worst, and those people don't wanna be in there, and it's just 24/7, like, BS they're dealing with, you know? What's your do you have any crazy stories about working behind the wall?
Crazy stories, huh? Um, well, first, let me just say this. It's just like anything else, man. It's what you make of it, right?
Yep.
And it's what you put into it. So the people that hate those jobs, that hate corrections, and I'm not talking about somebody who's never done it. I'm saying someone that does it and they hate it, right?
Mhm.
It's probably a little more to the story.
Yep.
For me specifically, I can only speak on myself, but for me specifically, man, I really enjoyed what I did. Um, as far as working in corrections goes, I had a lot of great opportunities. Um, I made it what I wanted it, man. It worked out for me. I treated everybody with respect, and so I got the same. Yeah, I was just saying, man, that there's people that love it, and there's people that hate it. It's a matter of perspective. Just like anything else, it's what you put into it. It's what you make of it. I enjoyed what I did, man. I was successful in there.
Yeah.
And I think that's just a result of, the work I put into it. You treat people right, you get treated right.
Absolutely.
And made or not. You know what I mean? Like, we're all human beings, man. That's the bottom line. You treat people right, you get treated right.
Absolutely. Well, I'm assuming Ohio's probably like everywhere else, and there's probably a big gang culture behind the walls too.
Yeah.
Um, it always kind of fascinated me. Like, I try to go to the gang conference every year because it never amazes me that you'll see these big criminal enterprises that still happen behind the walls. That they get in, they'll smuggle cell phones in, and they'll run drug networks outside and stuff like that. And uh, criminal activity doesn't stop just because they're back there, And, like, you guys are still in there when you're in there, still just doing that type of stuff, and, like, that's front lines everyday stuff, and, like, it's
It is,
great.
man. If people don't realize that, and you don't really expect society to recognize, like, the brutal reality, that exists, the evil that exists. You don't really expect that. I mean, as cops, we don't expect that, but at the same time, That's a reality that can't be ignored, man. I think people need to understand that. It's a whole different world, dude. When you walk inside those walls, it's a whole different world. The energy is different.
Yep.
The energy is different, man. It's not like out here on the street when, you don't know who you're approaching. I mean, the difference is you know that you're approaching at a bare minimum somebody who has been convicted of a felony. I
Yep.
mean, they are a convicted felon. You know that much. You might not know the details of their case, but you know that much. You know they're a convicted felon, and so that kind of changes the game a little bit. But that's the reality, man. You can't ignore it. It's a whole different world in there for sure.
You were on the special response team, SWAT sort,
Right.
inside there, correct?
That's right.
Like, that's a completely different animal than what you'd normally classify as, like, a regular SWAT team too, because you know where they're at. Um, it's a small area, I mean, but there's also one door, one way in usually a lot of times, and,
It can be, yeah. It can be.
um, kinda tell me, like, your time on the team, like, your takeaways from it, because, I mean, that's something I've never experienced is, like, the correction side of things, and to me, that's just, like, you're going into that confined space and, like, they're coming out whether they want to or not. They may be throwing stuff at you or,
Well,
got a weapon in there, like, it's
right.
crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it can be. So I think first you got to understand the difference between, jail and prison.
Yeah.
When you talk about jail, that's more like what you described. Like it's a small confined place, one way in, one way out kind of thing. Prison's a little different, man. Prison is in comparison, it's a whole different, it's a whole different ball game for real. It's a whole different design. Generally, it's a lot bigger, in size as far as that goes. It kind of like where I worked, man, it was kind of looked like a college campus for real.
Okay.
Um, well, wasn't that's about it. Like that's the only comparison, but it was set up like a college campus, so it was a lot bigger than what, you would think if you're only, if you're imagining a jail setup. Now, there's a lot of big jails out there too. Don't get me wrong, but prison's a whole different beast for sure. So I think first you got to understand the difference between prison and jail.
Yeah.
And once you understand the difference between prison and jail, then that kind of opens the doors to other aspects. So as far as being on a special response team, I mean, there's a lot of different responsibilities that we had, but generally, I mean, anytime there's a situation or critical incident, something of that nature, I mean, they're going to deploy the special response team. And so that can be, a variety of different things, man. Sometimes we're just doing shakedowns in across the prison, shaking down the units, going in and out of each and every cell, removing the contraband. And we find ourselves in a position where, maybe we have to go hands on with somebody or, maybe we've got to defend ourselves. So you just never know, man. It's a diverse environment for sure.
Now, were you guys
You got to be.
responsible? Go ahead.
Go ahead. I cut you
No,
off.
I was
Thanks.
just gonna say, were you guys responsible just for your facility, or did you guys have, like, a region or the whole state, or how'd that work?
So generally, the way it works, man, is each institution is going to have its own special response team. Each institution is going to have its own SRT team. Uh, Now, that's not to say that you only operate at your institution. There was plenty of times where we would be activated, and I would go to another institution in the state for different reasons. Maybe it was just that other institution needed help. Um, Maybe it was just our team was selected for whatever reason. We where I worked, man. I mean, we were known. We everybody knew we had probably the best response team in the state, and so we got used up. We got used up, and to this day they did. It wasn't just because of me, believe it or not. Not there anymore, and they still get used up. So there's a lot to be said for that. But yeah, we traveled a lot, man, throughout the state. Different reasons. We go down to our maximum security prison pretty often, and we clean house. We'd go in there and do our best to get all the contraband out and things. Um,
Let me
yeah,
ask you this, you made mention, that, that team's still getting used a lot, and do you think that's just a culture they've set up there to where, like, "Hey, we're gonna train religiously to be the best of the best?" Um
Yeah, I mean, that's always the goal, right?
Yeah.
It's always the goal. When I go in the gym, I'm not going in the gym with the expectation of being average. I'm gonna
Yeah.
go in here and everybody in the gym is gonna look at me and be like, "Man, this dude knows what he's doing. This dude's training hard." Like that's always the expectation. That's the goal. So, yeah, I mean, definitely for sure. And then once you earn that reputation, that's not something you want to let go.
Yep.
But the bottom line is, man, when it comes down to life and death, you got to be the best.
Yep.
You have to be the best, and that's the only option. You know,
Yep. Because we want to go home at night.
that's right, man. We want to go home, but we want to go home good.
Yep.
Go
That's
home
very true.
we wanna go home good. That's what I always add. People say, "We're gonna go home," but we're gonna go home good. That's the important thing.
Yeah, and that's an important distinction to make. Like, no one wants to get injured too.
That's
Um,
right.
how long were you there when you decided that you wanted to join the army and re-enlist?
Uh, I was there for about maybe, let me see, October, let me see, about 9 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
What made you decide that you wanted to re-enlist and then choose the army?
Yeah, I just wanted to get on active duty, man, at that time. So, the Marine Corps, there were some things happening, and really to reenlist at that time, I had to fill what was referred to as a hot fill MOS. So basically, I was kind of at the mercy of the Marine Corps. I had a friend that I just kind of made that leap, and so he filled me in a little bit as to what the process, what was involved in the process, and it was just it was just something that made sense, man. I went and talked to the army recruiter, and he had me out the door, and I think he had me out the door in like 3 months. So it was a real quick process, man. So
Now,
that's kind of where that came from.
now, correct me if I'm wrong, but like Marine Corps, if you go through Marine Corps boot camp, you don't have to go through the other branches boot camp after that.
That's right. Yeah, generally speaking, I mean, it depends what your MOS is, what your job is. For
Yep.
me, I didn't have to go. I didn't have to go to boot camp. It's kind of a strange process, really, man. I went straight from my house, to MEPS, the Military Entrance Processing Station. Hopped on a plane and flew straight to Fort Lee, Virginia, for my individual training. So
Okay.
no experience in the Army whatsoever. I mean, no experience in the Army whatsoever. Didn't have to go to boot camp. I went straight to AIT, individual training. And, I mean, I walked around on that base for 2 weeks with no uniforms. I had this is no joke, man. I had senior enlisted, so E6, E7. I mean, calling me sir. They didn't know whether or not to salute me. They didn't know who I was. I guess it's just the way I carried myself. They thought maybe I was an officer or something,
Mhm.
and they thought, maybe I was like planted there for some different reason. And I know that because I had an E7, man. When I finally started training, I went to the schoolhouse, just fresh uniforms, no rank. What I mean, I like little rank. And I went to the schoolhouse, and one of the E7s pulled me aside. He's like, "Man, who are you?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Who are you?" I told him who I was, and he said, "Man, I thought for sure you were like an officer or something, and you were planted here." And he said, "Dude, me and these other guys have been having like we've been talking on a regular basis, trying to figure out who you were because we didn't get any kind of heads up. Like nobody told us anything. I wasn't even assigned to a company there for those first 2 weeks. So when I tell you nobody knew who I was, man, nobody knew who I was. But I had that prior service, and because of the way I carried myself, my demeanor, my confidence, man, everybody was like really kind of confused. I wasn't walking around like some brand new, boot that had no experience and was, afraid or whatever. So it was really an interesting experience, man.
How long did you do in the army?
I did, so I did another 3 years with the Army.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, man, I kinda lucked out, dude, for real. I mean, I did my AIT, and then I got sent out to Hawaii for a couple years, so, no complaints there.
I can imagine not. So,
Yeah.
after that, you decided you wanted to go work for the state police?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. So
okay.
I went back for a little while, and then, yeah, I went so I've been with the so I worked with the state, a few different roles. Started there as a trooper, and did a few other things. I really found my niche in criminal patrol, man. That's where it's at. So when I say criminal patrol, I'm talking drugs, guns, and criminal offenses, criminal things.
Listen, I'm gonna go ahead and apologize because my dad's a retired state trooper, and God help me that I said state police and not trooper. That is, my bad.
Hey, hold on, man. Listen, it's all you don't have to apologize to me. All right. I'll kind of stop you and I'll say, listen, man, that's not something the title thing, that's not something I trip up over.
Yeah.
You know what I
I
mean? Like it's got its place, right? But it's
Yep.
not something that I lose my mind over. You
I'll
know what
I'll
I
never
mean?
I'll never forget when I
People
was a
can hear
young
that. It
cop.
doesn't
I worked with a bunch of veteran guys and, like, they were towards the end of their career, and they didn't wanna do anything. Like, if I went and stirred something up, they'd show up to back me, but, like, outside of that, they were, counting down the days to retirement, and so,
that's right.
the state troopers here in Oklahoma, like, I made buddies with them because we wanted to go shake the bushes, and, that's what we'd do every night. We'd go shake the bushes, and then, by the time breakfast rolled around, it'd be, almost time to go home, but, like, some of my best friends are state troopers and we give each other a hard time, but we do the same job at the end of the day,
That's right. Yeah,
And
man. People ask me all the time what branch you like better, the Marine Corps or the Army. I chuckle. I mean, it's kind of funny. It's kind of funny because obviously, I think everybody kind of recognizes the Marine Corps as a more elite, fighting force, and
yep,
I think that's the reality of it. And some people, they might feel some kind of way about it, but I served in the Army and the Marine Corps, man, so I can have this conversation and I can say these things. Uh,
yep,
I feel like we all do the same thing, like you said. It just in law enforcement, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if your uniform's gray, if it's black. It doesn't matter, man. Like we're all doing the same thing. We have different titles, but at the end of the day, we all do the same thing. When I'm in a critical incident and I need backup, sometimes my backup's 30 minutes away. Right? Who am
yep,
I getting? I'm getting a local PD. I'm getting a village. We're all doing the same thing. You know what I mean? So we got to look out for each other. We got to take care of each other. Yeah, that's the bottom line, man. So I'm right there with you. I don't trip up over the titles. We're all doing the same thing, man. We're different cars, different uniforms, but at the end of the day, as a state trooper, if I'm rolling through the city and I see a local cop out on a domestic, guess what, man? I'm out on that domestic too. That's
yep,
the reality. That's a fact, and I've been there, done that. If anybody's got anything to say about it, I'll handle it. But that's the
yep,
reality, man. That's a leadership. That's what it's all about. We got to take care of each other.
absolutely. Now, did you do your time like when you were on patrol with the state? Were you in a more urban area or rural area?
Man, so we're broken down into districts up here.
Okay,
So when I graduated out of the academy, man, I went to District 8, which is a more it's a little bit of both. You got a good rural area, you got some urban, you got a lot of urban environment. Just kind of depends where you're at specifically. So the post I went to, man, we had 3 counties. We handled 3 counties, 3 large counties. So it was a good mix, man. A lot of city life, a lot of country life. Kind of
yep,
depending on the day where you'd be at the most, as far as service calls and stuff. But definitely a good mix, man. And then after a few years, I transferred up to D6, which is where I'm at now, and there's a lot more city life here. So I worked a lot of like uh, what you would call the hood, I guess, as far as city life goes. A lot of pursuits, a lot of shootings, a lot of those type of calls, that you don't necessarily handle or you're not necessarily involved in on a regular basis, being out in the countryside.
yeah, and
So yeah, I'm pretty experienced. I mean, I've got a pretty, the experience in both, man. That's what I would say.
yeah, and those are completely different roles, I would say, because at least in Oklahoma, like you have your troopers that work in their rural areas, and man, there a lot of times, like, the municipality sheriff's offices may be 15, 20 minutes out, and that
That's right.
trooper's out there by themselves and has to handle themselves appropriately,
That's right.
Like, physically, like, they know how to need to know how to talk to people, and so, like, it's a w I don't wanna call it a thankless job, but it's a job that, like, it's where, it's time to make that man or woman and, like, you're gonna get out there and do it, and, I think that's why those stress academies work so well because they have to be out there by themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the whole idea, and, when you talk about paramilitary, I mean, that's the whole idea, dude. Like, when you think of military and you think about boot camp, what's the first thing you think of?
Yeah.
I'm gonna get screamed at, I'm gonna get hollered at, I'm gonna do a lot of push-ups, I'm gonna puke when I'm running, all those things. I guess that's what you think of. So when you think of paramilitary, that's the whole emphasis, behind our style of training when it comes to the police academy. And that's why, man, we gotta put that stress on you, and we gotta know how you're gonna respond in a situation because like you said, man, at any time it's game on, and you don't know where your backup's at.
Yep.
You
I,
gotta be ready for that, man. You gotta be ready for that.
yeah,
Yeah, and it's not even just physically, like, you gotta mentally prepare and be ready for that, and I think that's where a lot of people get lost. I see people all the time, they'll hit the gym, and physically, man, they're elite, right? But mentally, they're not ready. They're not thinking like that. If you're not thinking like that, it doesn't matter how physically prepared you are. If you're not prepared mentally, you're setting yourself up for failure. What
yep,
I do before I go on shift, man, every shift, and I've done this for years. I work afternoons primarily. So what I do is I go to the gym every day before my shift. That's how I get my mind right. All right. That's how I get my mind right. So, and I've done that no matter what shift I'm on. I've always done that. If I'm on night shift, I go to the gym at 8:30. If I'm on afternoon shift, I'm in the gym by 12. And sometimes you got to make adjustments. But the point I'm trying to make, man, is you have to be mentally prepared. Doesn't matter how physically prepared you are if you're not in the right mind. And that's the whole emphasis behind those paramilitary style of training.
yeah. You make a very good point, and I was actually just having this discussion with somebody the other day. Like, too often guys show up to work not prepared mentally, like, for whatever reason, life may happen, bad day, whatever it may be, and then you come to work and it bleeds out into the job because at the end of the day, we are human and you can and so I like that, like, you know what it takes to get you prepared for work each day, and
That's
you
right.
have a routine to get it done. Like, I love that because you're not gonna show up to work unprepared mentally just as much as you are physically.
Right.
And, you made it spot on, like, you have to show up and be ready for both, like, you have to.
That's right, man. And
Um,
that's right.
you said you started liking criminal patrol, a little bit. How did you find out eventually, like, "Man, this is the direction I wanna go in law enforcement?"
Hey, Brent, man, there was a glitch there. I missed the whole question, dude.
Oh, you said that you started liking, kinda like criminal patrol, stuff like that, like, that's what you're interested in, is that what you said earlier?
Yeah, I mean, that's what yeah, in a roundabout way. So I knew going into law enforcement what my purpose was. And I
Okay.
think that changes everything. When you know what your purpose is going into it, all I need you to do is cut the leash. Cut the leash, and I don't need any more, you know, I don't need any more direction as far as that goes. So it didn't take me any time to figure out what I wanted to do. I kind of hit the ground running. But yeah, that's pretty much what I was saying, man, was, I found that in criminal patrol, which is, that's where we're chasing the bad guys, the drugs, guns, anything criminal in nature, man. That's kind of what it comes down to.
Yeah, and I mean, that's you have to have those type of people at your agency, otherwise you're being a reactive agency. Can you kinda talk to people who may wanna get into law enforcement or never been, the importance of being proactive?
Yeah, I mean, I think the importance. I mean, proactivity is literally your lifeline to. I mean, that's how we prevent. Being proactive is how we prevent things from happening. We can't always prevent everything from happening, but if we're not even trying, man, you're not going to prevent anything. That's the reality of it. So I think the importance behind being proactive, man, is it's second to none. I mean, and again, that goes right back to the mentality that we were talking about. You have to have that mentality. You can't be proactive if your mind's asleep, because that's how you get yourself hurt.
Yep,
You can't be proactive if you don't have that tactical edge. You're gonna get yourself hurt. So I think first you have to master that. You have to understand that, but secondly, you gotta understand that if you're proactive in this job, you will prevent crime from happening. Not everything, but that's the idea.
yep,
And so I would say to anybody who's thinking about getting into law enforcement, and if you feel like that you want to go out there and attack this criminal element, then that's great. But you got to understand what comes behind that,
yep,
and start working on those things now, those fundamentals,
yep.
you know.
Well, and I think this plays along with that is I've seen far too often guys will stop somebody, make a good arrest, warrants, drugs, guns, whatever, and once that traffic stop's done, they're done with it.
Yeah.
Uh, like, there is so much that you can build off of on those traffic stops by building beyond that traffic stop, by working that person, getting more information, getting more stops out of that stop. Um, it to actually get out there and shake them bushes, you gotta be a well-rounded officer, and I think a lot of guys get scared of, like, case law and search warrants and,
Right.
stuff like that, and
Yeah.
that's why it goes back to the training of being a well-rounded officer, like, find that veteran officer that does write search warrants and say, "Man, show me how to do this, I wanna learn,"
Yeah.
and take that initiative, and if it's somebody even outside of your agency, like, "Hey, man, like, I know you're always serving these warrants, like, let me learn." Because there's just so much out there that, like, people miss because they stop once that traffic stop's over. "Hey, I know you got a little bit of meth and a gun, like, we're just gonna go to jail and be done with it." Like, oh, work that, grow that case because that's how you catch these other criminals is from that one stop. I want guys to realize, like, don't be intimidated of search warrants, of, like, going beyond that stop. There's so much out there.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely is, man. And that's yeah, I think a lot of times that just comes with experience. It comes with experience and, hopefully, a person has a good mentor, somebody they can rely on. That's another truth, man. Like, 'cause sometimes people don't have that.
Yep,
Especially when you start talking about these smaller agencies, man, when people are coming out of the academy and they're going to a department with 3 or 4 officers, and those 3 or 4 officers are all beat. It's called what it is, man. They're beat. They're retired
yep,
on duty.
yep,
I'm saying you can't retire on duty and train up new people to do this job. In fact, I would say, hey, if that's you and you're in a department right now where everybody's beat, you got to get out of there. You got to get out of there. You got to take care of yourself.
yep.
You know what I mean? Like that's the reality of it is, a lot of times that's the case. And that's a whole different world of issues. Sometimes that's politically driven. It's financially driven. It's all those things, man. It just circles back to mindset, dude. You got to have that mindset.
Absolutely. I was blessed. I worked for a probably 12-man agency when I first started, not big. And I was lucky enough to be around one of the smartest cops I've ever met from the get go. And like, he just was like, "Hey, let me take you under my wing." And like, he showed me how to write search warrants and like the affidavit and the actual search warrant. And like, this is what they want. This is where to find more information. And I was extremely blessed to be get that, and I've tried to pay it forward, like, when I get because I work for a tribal agency now, and so we've got 11 counties, I think, a big area, and, when we go to these small towns and stuff, like, I try to, like, pass along what knowledge I do have because I've been there in their shoes where,
Yeah.
"Hey, man, if it's a paid training, like, you're either paying for it yourself or you're not going." Like, I've worked for small agencies, and it's not fun because you go out there and deal with the same criminals just for less pay, you know?
Right.
And, that's just something a lot of guys need to realize is, like, if you're at a place that takes care of you, pass that knowledge you do have, like, forward.
Yeah. That's an excellent point, dude. And, I've been fortunate, we'll say I've been blessed to always be in a position where, I've got those resources, and kind of I put myself in those positions. So it's not, I knew, I knew what I was getting into with, going the state route, you know what I mean? Because it was familiar,
Yep,
so but I knew I knew those resources would be there. So some people, they go to they go to a little community college type academy and, they kinda just gotta kinda take what they can get, and then what happens is they take what they can get with ambitions of going to somewhere different, doing something different, but then what happens is when they're there, they get comfortable, right? And then the beatness starts to wear off. And then before you know it, they can't shake it. And so now they're doing all this time at this agency that, and it's just it's a trickle down effect. It truly is, but you're right. So I've been blessed, man. I've been fortunate to find myself in these positions where I have those resources. So I can't tell you, man, on how many different occasions I'll have somebody from a PD or a village reach out to me because I give everybody my number, man, especially the folks that I work with. I don't care what agency you're with. I told you earlier. everybody's got my number, and I mean it. If you need me, you call me. A lot of times it's quicker than going through the radios.
Yep.
If you need me, you call me. And dude, I can't tell you how many times, even to this day, people call me, um, just for advice. Hey, what do you think I should do? What would you do in this situation? Or I've had guys call me and be like, hey man, I got some downtime. You mind meet me over here at the garage, run me through some field sobriety stuff. You might meet me over here at the garage, man. Kind of school me on some crash investigation because we've been having a lot of crashes over here. Um, when I was a cop down south, man, we had I did a lot of domestic violence stuff. Rolling because we rolling domestics and kind of how that translates to local policing and things of that nature. But the bottom line is, man, yeah, you have to help people. You have to be that person. Otherwise we're all just spinning our wheels. We got to take care of each other, man. We got to make them better no matter what uniform you're wearing.
Absolutely.
If
I
you're in a position to do that, man, and you're not doing that, I'm here to tell you, you're wrong.
Yep.
You're wrong. If you're in a position, especially if you call yourself a leader, if you call yourself a leader and you're not doing those things, you're dead wrong. You're not a leader. I hate to tell you that.
Yep.
You're a
I
supervisor, you're a manager, but you don't get to call yourself a leader.
You actually made a very good point. I was actually gonna say it myself is those are managers. They're not a leader. Like they don't lead anything. They just manage it. Um,
That's right, man.
and I was actually having this discussion with a friend of mine the other day. Uh, when I first got into law enforcement, I had a supervisor that it wouldn't have mattered what I did. Like could not. I don't know if it's generational or he was an old school '80s Marine. Like I don't know if he just didn't vibe with me. We didn't connect, and it didn't matter if I went out and like saved the world. I would have been bad, wrong in his eyes. And my best friend worked with him, and like he got along with him great. Like we'd do the exact same thing, and he'd get a commendation, I'd get wrote up. And it's one of those things that like I always felt like he didn't lead me, he managed me. But for whatever reason, and I don't personally dislike that guy. Like I mean, if I saw him today, I'd go up and shake his hand. We probably would never have a beer together, but like I would be respectful because like he put his time in. But I do know that like I learned from what I took from how he led me that I didn't ever want to do that again. Like and when I got put in a position of being a patrol supervisor, like I tried to get to know my people and find out what they enjoyed at work, what they wanted to do and support that. Because at the end of the day, that's a lot of what people want is like, hey, they want a supervisor that's going to be there for them. They'll back them up and let
That's right.
them be,
Yeah,
and whether that's being proactive, whether that's, working dope, whether it's working guns, like whatever,
yeah.
like just be there and be supportive as a supervisor and pass that knowledge along to your people and just give a damn about how their day's going.
That's right.
And
Yeah,
you'll be shocked about how well your shift will run at that point,
yeah. You're right. Just
you
you
know?
said it, man. Just give a damn. And
And
I think you see that the most when people aren't ready to be promoted. We got to quit doing that. Why? Agencies have to quit doing that. Quit promoting people that aren't ready. Just
yep,
because they pass a test or they fulfill the requirements. You got to stop doing that
yep,
because all you're doing, you're preventing growth.
yep,
What happens when you promote somebody that's not ready, right? Over top of a combat veteran that was a leader. He led troops, he led Marines, he led, whatever. In a real life situation where, hey, this is life. What happens when you promote somebody that's not ready? You think that person's gonna just lay down and take that?
nope,
That crappy leadership? No,
nope,
he's not gonna do that. All right. I've been there, by the way. I'm speaking
yep,
from experience. I pulled a sergeant to the side and I said, hey, listen, um, I think you have potential. It's funny, right? It's funny coming from an officer to a sergeant. I think you have potential to be a good leader one day, just not yet. You're wearing stripes, man. So you're in a position where you've got to step up. And I gave him some guidance. And you know what he did? He thanked me for that because he recognized where it was coming from.
yep,
But the reality is, man, the hard truth is that agency, they failed him. They failed him by putting him in a position he wasn't ready for. And he
yep,
later acknowledged that. Um, and that's the truth, man. That's the reality of it. We got to quit doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have no
I'm a fool.
problem admitting my first time I was made a corporal at a municipal agency, I got put on a shift with another corporal, and um, so they really didn't give me any like formal leadership training.
Yeah,
And then they put me on a shift with somebody that they considered a senior corporal, so they really got to make all the decisions.
right.
And I felt like I never got the experience to like grow and that
Yeah,
knowledge base to be a good leader. And so the second time when I went to the tribal agency and became a corporal, I felt like it went a lot better because
of course.
I had that experience of it not going well, and by this point, I'd received more actual leadership training, and I felt like it went so much better that second time, but I had to admit that the first one did not go well. Like, I had to own that. Like, "Hey, my first time being a supervisor wasn't bad, but it didn't go well either." I was kinda a patrolman with, 2 stripes on their shirt, and,
But you know what, Brent? I think I want to take a second, man, and tip my hat to you because I think it's important and you recognize that and you own it. That's the main thing. You own it. You know what
yep,
I mean? That's what's missing. People don't want to own those things, right? Because it's not pretty, man. It's not sexy. I don't want to own something that doesn't make me look the best. But the truth is, it's the reality. And,
yep,
and I want to tip my hat to you, man, for recognizing that. You know what I mean? Because I have no doubt in my mind that that has made you a better
yep,
person, and a more a better leader, right?
yep,
And people respect that. And at the end of the day, man, respect is the pinnacle of leadership. I've said it 1,000 times. It's the truth I stand on. Respect is the pinnacle of leadership. If you don't have that basic level, if you don't have that respect, you're not going to be very effective, man. That's just the truth. And
yep,
I can respect you all day long because of the stripes on your shoulder or the bar on your collar, you know, or however your agency, works the insignia.
yep,
I respect you all day long for that. Hey, man, but listen, as far as men go, man to man to woman, however you look at it. If I don't respect you as a person, a human being, I mean, dude, that means more than anything, dude. That means more than anything. Leadership is not about being above anybody else. Leadership is about helping others get where they need to be and recognizing their potential, right? That's what leadership's all about. I still have people that reach out to me today from 10 years ago from military days, man. By the way, they outrank me. Like they done superseded everything that I've ever done, right? But they still reach out to me and tell me about their wins, man. And it's awesome to hear that, you know.
yep,
I've got a soldier, man, that I mentored up through the army when he was brand new. And he's a drill sergeant today, man. He got me beat in rank. I mean, I've been out for years now. He's got me beat in rank. He's a drill sergeant. Like he's done everything that he's ever wanted to do, man. And I still talk to him on a regular basis. So that's respect.
yep,
It ain't about rank. It ain't about nothing else, man. It's about respect,
yep,
you know. And it's not an arrogance thing. It's not. It's simple, dude. It's simple. It's life 101.
yep. And I realized pretty quickly my second time around, like, how much things flowed so much better now that, like, I had a little bit that self-reflection of, like, "Hey, the first time didn't go very well,"
Yeah.
and, like, the second time, it was
Good
just
for you,
almost
man.
it was like, "Man, this is going a lot better this time,"
Yeah.
and, like,
Yeah.
um, I left the agency for about 6 months. I went and ran a police academy for a little bit, and they called me and they asked for me a spot back in training, and, I love it, but the one thing I tried to bring in there is I don't try to force the training that people like, if you come to me and say, "Hey, I wanna go to the Ohio Gang Conference." Okay, well, let's see how we can work to get you there because that's what you're interested in.
That's
Like,
right.
I don't wanna send some guy to, an advanced accident school if they have no interest in working an accident. And, at the end of the day, it takes maybe 10, 15 minutes when you talk to somebody and say, "Man, tell me what interests you. Where do you see yourself now? 6 months, a year?" Um, because it's their life and career that you're, like, dealing with. And at the end of the day, we want the best trained and people happy because that makes a smooth agency.
Yeah, for sure. And you're not referring to I know what you're saying. You're not referring to like a basic level of education, because we all receive that. Like basic, we'll use we'll use your example, crash investigation. We
Yep.
all have that basic level of crash investigation. Because the truth is, man, is you might have to handle a crash one day, whether you like it
Yep.
or
Yeah.
uh, we've all been there, right?
Yep.
You know, I'm not going to send you to some expert level training if that's not something you're interested in.
Yep.
If you're not interested in it and that's not where your heart's at, forget about it. Like, just because I send you this training doesn't mean your heart's automatically going to be in it. No, it's
Yep.
just gonna mean you have this training that's going to waste.
Yep.
So
And,
good for
and,
you,
and
man. That's awesome.
well, and to add on to that is how many times that have you seen it? Probably every agency you've been at, but supervisors get put into a new supervisor role because they've been there the longest. You know,
Yeah, dude. Yeah,
not that they actually wanted to be the supervisor, but hey, they were there the longest, so they're going to be the supervisor now. And man, that's a morale killer. It's a shift killer. And then 6 months to a year later, they're wondering why things went wrong. Well, it's because you put a guy in there that didn't want to be a leader into a leadership role.
that's right. That's what I'm saying. We got to quit doing that. That's nonsense. We got to quit doing that silly stuff, dude.
Yep.
Could you imagine? Could you imagine like the most elite SWAT team in your state, or the military for that matter? Could you imagine if they just? I can't even imagine. Like, I can't even fathom that. The thought of having a platoon sergeant that doesn't want to be a platoon sergeant just blows my mind. Like, I can't even imagine that. So, wherever that concept's coming from is beyond me. But we got to quit doing that.
Yep.
I'll tell you a story, man. I actually had that same situation you just described is real life, and it's happening every day, dude. Believe it or not. But I knew a supervisor one time. He promoted to corporal. Um, he didn't want. He said he didn't even want to promote to sergeant, but he kind of got pushed to promote to sergeant because the spot that he wanted was coming up for some sort of reassignment or whatever. And so the only way for him to, on paper, take a step forward was to go ahead and go for this promotion. But he didn't even want this promotion because he knew what it meant. He knew it was going to land him on the shift that he didn't want to be on. So now we got a supervisor that doesn't want to be a supervisor on a shift that he doesn't want to be a shift that he doesn't want to be on. And dude, it brought everybody down. It was a vibe kill. You know what I mean? And like, it has a trickle down effect too. Luckily it was a bunch of seasoned officers on this shift, and we didn't really, we didn't rely on that. But yeah, man, we got to stop doing that.
Yep. And it happens all the time.
Yeah, when
Guys about
you figure out how we're going to make that happen, dude, let me know. I'll be a part of it.
Yeah. Well, and it happens far too frequently. Guys are like, "Hey, I'll go be a sergeant for extra $1.50 an hour," and they're gonna put me on overnights where I really don't want to be at. And then 6 months later, they're miserable because they went to a shift they didn't want to be at. Like, you're not doing your people a service at that point. Like, you're doing them a disservice
Yeah.
because you don't want to be there.
Yeah.
It drives me nuts. So what's next for
It's the
you?
truth. It's the truth, isn't it?
Yep.
It's the truth. Though.
Yep.
What's next for me?
Yeah.
Well, I've considered a few things. I don't, I can't say for certain right now. I've got some things in motion that I don't want to speak on too soon until, I know what's what, for certain. But, I'm building my brand as far as my personal endeavors. I'm wrapping up my first book now. Super stoked about it, man. I don't know if you've seen anything, my content or whatever on LinkedIn or whatnot, but yeah, I'm wrapping up my first book now, man. I'm super stoked about it. And I know for a fact it's gonna steer me in, it's gonna open up some doors for me. Some of those doors are already beginning to open. So man, I don't know, dude. Here's what I don't do. I don't close doors on myself. I don't shut down anything. All right. Because we all have a purpose on this earth. And once you start closing doors on yourself and you shut those opportunities down, you don't, I mean, you're killing your purpose. And we all
Yep.
have a purpose, man. We have to fulfill that. So training is something I'm serious about. Training is something I'm serious about. I'm excited to move forward with that in the arena that we're in right now. So I'll continue doing that. And you never know, that might turn into a full-time thing.
Yep.
I'm not going to shut that down by any means, because that's something that, I'm passionate about.
Yep.
But as far as everything else goes that I have going in my personal life, man, definitely really excited to release this book. My brand is taking off. I'm going to be selling some merchandise, so we'll see kind of what route that goes. I'm going to be selling Take Point Mindset shirts, and challenge coins are going to be going out real soon. So man, I don't know. The opportunities are endless, dude. But I don't shut doors on myself. That's for sure.
Well, I gotta ask, how did you decide I want to write a book, and how did you go about that?
So, so let me tell you something, man. When you you got to read my book. So you got to read my book to really truly understand where my head's at and where I
Okay.
come from. The ground that what's led me to where I'm at has all been it's all been by design, dude. I believe in God, and I believe that I believe in that for sure. God's timing is everything, and so that's kind of why now is the time. It's God's timing. But the truth is, man, is everything in my life has led me to where I'm at. And if you don't share what you've learned, and if you don't share the lessons that you've collected and over time with the world, man, like it's a disservice to the world. You know what I mean? Especially if you have a message that can maybe help somebody. If you can make a difference, you must. You know what I mean? I've heard that 100 times, and it's the truth. If you can make a difference in the world, then you must do it. And if you don't do it, you're wrong. Simply put, you're wrong. And that's kind of where it's at, man. But as far as timing goes, it's God's timing, dude.
That's awesome. When's the book gonna be out?
So I've given myself a hard deadline, man. It will be published by the end of the year. However, what I'm going to tell you is don't put anything past me. I bet on myself every time, and you just never know what I'm going to do. That's a fact too. So between now and the end of the year is what I'm going to tell you. You might be like, what the heck, man? He told me end of the year is June 4th. You know what I mean? You never know, man. You never know about me, but I don't cut corners, man. I'm not cutting any corners. This book's going to be solid. I'm doing everything myself. That's another thing. I'm doing everything myself. So it's a big learning curve. It's probably taking a little more time than what it would if I outsourced and had a bunch of people helping me. But I think that's part of the authenticity, man. That's part of what makes it real.
What's it? Is it just gonna be about your life? Is it leadership? Like, what's it about?
It's a good mix, man. It's
Yeah.
it's it's where I come from. It's my life. It's what's led me to the person that I am today. Um, and it's the lessons that I've learned along the way. Um, what leadership is, to say it's a leadership book is probably it's not a stretch by any imagination. I mean, it's definitely a leadership book, but it's a life book, bro.
Yeah.
It's a book, man. That's the truth. So, real life stories, man. Raw, real, true to the core, man. Just who I am, where I come from, what I've learned along the way, and how I developed what I call the take point mindset.
Can you talk? What's the take point mindset for people that don't know?
Take point mindset is taking point, dude. Think about it like this: the point guard takes the ball up the court in basketball, right?
Yeah, he's the leader.
When I was in the military, when we go on patrol, man, we always had a point man. All
Yep.
right, someone's got to take point. So, Brent, why would you not take point in your own life? Right? Why would you let somebody else take point in your life, man? That's silly. Why would you let somebody else write your narrative, dictate your path? They don't know you. They don't know what you've done. They don't know your experience. They don't know who you are, man. Why would you let anybody else take point in your life? That's the backbone
Yeah.
point, man. Take charge of your life. Live life on your terms. Don't lay down and be a victim. You don't have to accept things for what they are. If what they are isn't right for you, you can change it, but you got to take point.
Yep. Man, I
Take
love it.
point mindset. That's it, man. It's all about the mindset, bro.
Well, you know what I really like? This is our first time truly talking, like, in depth. And you know what I pick up that I really enjoy about you, and I can tell it served you well in this job,
What's that, man?
is you have a confidence about you that's not cockiness.
Right.
You carry yourself like, I'm ready for whatever's in front of me, and I like that. One of my best friends has that same way he carries himself, and I'm just like, that's awesome. Like, because you could walk in a room right now and you're like, I may not know everything, but I can handle myself. And I
That's
like
right.
that.
Yeah, that's right.
I like that mindset. And I want to give you kudos for that because like
Well, thanks,
that
bro. Appreciate that.
that is something that like when you're out there dealing with Joe Schmo on a traffic stop and things start to go a little bit left, that person that's in control is going to get that situation back under control and handle business.
Yeah, man.
Like that's what you want. And I like that. Like it's not cockiness, it's a confidence. And I like that because I can see that.
You know, it's a fundamental that, I've quite honestly, man, literally built my life on. You got to understand where I come from to really fully, recognize the the work put in behind the scenes. But I will say this, man, between the military, two different branches, corrections, I've worked state prisons, I've worked local jails. I've held rank from the very bottom to the top, you know, state law enforcement, local law enforcement. Um, what I can tell you, man, hands down, without a doubt, is having that confidence, that ability to control the room, that command presence will undoubtedly change your life in every way. Because I don't, like you said, man, I might not have all the answers. You might not have all the answers, but I'm going to take care of it. I'm going to take care of this situation, but before I cross the line and do something I shouldn't do, don't worry, I'm going to get clarification. We'll do this the right way, but I'm going to handle the situation no matter what. And I'm not going to mistreat you. I'm not going to talk down on you. I'm not going to do anything out of line because you're a human being and I respect that. That's a basic level of respect. But having that confidence, man, will change your life. It will change your life for sure. And
Absolutely.
and I've experienced it firsthand, man. I've worked. I'll tell you a story real quick. So I get a call one night. Well, first let me start by telling you the backside. That way it makes sense. So when I was a lieutenant in a prison, I walked this inmate out on his last day in prison. I was there for years, man. I watched him wrap up his sentence, right? And on his final day in prison, I walked him out. I walked him to the door. I said, "Hey, man, I want you to take care of yourself. I don't ever want to see you behind bars again. If I run into you on the street, that's different. I don't ever want to see you behind bars again." And we had that mutual respect. I respected him for who he was, and I watched him grow and mature and whatnot. And he respected me because I treated him like a man. He respected me because I didn't let the weight of the badge or whatever go to my head, and I didn't mistreat him because of that. Um, I ran into him a couple years later. I was on patrol. I got dispatched to a disabled vehicle in the median, right on the interstate. It was raining. It was nasty. Not the day I wanted to be rolling around on the ground and resisting, man. Believe me. Uh,
Right.
and thankfully, it didn't come to that because of what I'm about to tell you. So I get dispatched out here to this disabled vehicle. I show up and I pulled off to. So he was like in the southbound lanes. I pulled off in the northbound, and I just walked through the median because that was my best approach at that time. I walked up, and he's like kneeled down at his back tire, looking at the rim. I said, hey man, you mind talking to me for a minute? He turns around, dude. I kid you not. I immediately recognized. I'm like, wow, right? Mind blowing. What are the odds of this?
Right.
That was the first time, by the way. It's happened several times since. I didn't think it would happen so often, but it actually does. But I guess at the state level, you probably, maybe you're around it a little more. But anyway, dude, he turns around. He doesn't recognize me because last time he saw me, I had a big bushy beard. The prison, the NBC, everybody called me the Amish mobster, man. It's a big black beard, dude. I always shave my head. It's just pretty cool. But anyway, yeah, man. So the point is I'm talking to him. I recognize him. I knew who he was. I said, "Hey, man, let me get your ID real quick." I run his ID. I can't remember all the ins and outs, but anyway, I said, "Hey, dude," I said, "You don't remember me, do you?" And he looks at me. He's like, "I thought you looked familiar, but man, I can't place it." And I said, "Hey, I'm gonna call him Ben. I'm just gonna say Ben."
Yeah.
I said, "Hey, Ben, how long you been out of the joint, man? How long you been out of prison?" He looked at me. Eyes got big. He said, "Mo, is that you?" I said, "That's right, man." I said, "Dang, dude." I said, "How you doing, man? It's been a long time." Now, here's why that's important, right? It wasn't like, "Hey, Mo, is that you?" "Yeah, okay, let's fight." No, it wasn't that. It was, man, he was happy to see me. You know what I mean? And he thanked me again for always treating him with respect, treating him like a man. He told me he was back on his feet, he was doing things right. Whether he was or not, I don't know, man, but that's not my story to tell. You know what I mean?
Right.
What I'm trying to make right now is that was an interaction that could have went a lot worse, right? And that's why it's so important, man, to just treat people right.
Well, and people
Because
don't
I don't need
forget
to assert my dominance. I don't need to convince you that I'm in charge. I don't need to flex on nobody, man. I don't got nothing to prove to anybody. If you know my story, you know that. I ain't got nothing to prove to nobody. So I don't need to flex on you, right?
Yep,
All I gotta do is treat you like a man.
yep. Well, and those interactions, people don't forget how you treat them. It doesn't matter if it's 6 weeks, 6 years, 10 years, like, they remember how you treated them, and
Yeah,
it ain't gonna go away just 'cause time passes.
that's right.
Uh, and that's an awesome story to tell because it's so true. He remembered you treated him right, and
I can Yeah,
it coulda went left easily,
yeah,
and it didn't because you did the right thing, you
that's
know?
right. Yeah,
Um, let me
yeah.
ask you this, if somebody wants to follow you, you know, follow your training brand, get in touch with you to, host training, how do they get a hold of you?
So the best avenue right now, find me on LinkedIn. LinkedIn, Mark Mowbray. You can find me on LinkedIn. Take Point Mindset is my brand page. Y- Type either one of them in, you'll find me pretty easily. That's going to be your best avenue right now is LinkedIn. You can email me anytime at takepoint Lincoln Paul at outlook.com. And that'll go straight to me as well. But I'm telling you right now, follow me on LinkedIn. That's going to be the best bet. Um, I have an Instagram page. I have a Take Point Mindset Facebook page. I have a YouTube page. There's not a lot of content right now. I have never been real active on social media. I've never been a big social media um, influencer. I don't put out a lot of content, but it's something that I'm going to start doing more of. So I have those pages. You can find me on Instagram, Take Point Mindset, Mark Mowbray. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on YouTube. But LinkedIn is going to be the best bet right now as far as being active goes, and staying in tighter communication.
Absolutely.
As far as following that, you know what I mean? And I'm gonna start rolling out, like I said, some merchandise. There's some shirts that are being worked out right now. I'm gonna start handing out challenge coins. If you take my class, I'm an instructor with ADB training. I teach the tactical edge. Um, Kind of like everything we've talked about is what I teach. So it's a 2-day course that I teach. I think in July I'm going out to Texas, if I remember right, is on the calendar. So you can find me on ADB as well. But that's something that I'm passionate about. And so what I'm going to probably end up doing is that tactile edge. What I'm going to end up doing is handing out those challenge coins if you come to my class.
That's awesome.
And you're not going to come to my class and it's not death by PowerPoint. You're not going to come to my class and leave empty handed. You're going to come to my class, hopefully with the expectation of learning and having a good time. But I think you're going to be blown away. I really, truly do because I keep it real, man. Everything I do, I keep it real because I think real is the only way to win.
Yep. Where, when your book comes out, where are they gonna be able to get it at? Pretty much everywhere? Are they gonna have to order it from you or
Hey, man, listen, if I can sell it here, if I can sell it anywhere, I'm gonna sell it anywhere.
Yep,
All right, because it's gonna be. I know I'm gonna self publish. All right, because I'm not letting anybody take my words. I'm not letting anybody twist my story. I'm gonna self publish. Like I said, man, I've done everything up to this point by myself. Um, and that's the plan, man, is to keep down that path. So I'm gonna self publish. So definitely gonna be available on Amazon. Um, and then hopefully get into all the stores, man. Walmart, Target, you name it. That's the plan. I'm not real. I can't speak too far into that right now because I just don't know. All right.
yep.
But if I can make it available somewhere, just know that I'm going to make it available in that place.
Well, you let me know when it's available, and I'll buy a copy because 'cause I'm a avid reader, and I'm here to support you because I think that's such a big step for a cop to write a book because a lot of guys are so afraid of that, like,
Yeah.
going beyond going beyond that just general police work. Oh my god, doing a podcast or writing a book or, that they think that they're not qualified to do that, and when reality is we all have a story to tell.
That's right, man. Dude, I'm so glad you said that, man. That is right, dude. Everybody's got a story to tell.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's up to you. Are you going to take that story to the grave with you, or you going to put it on paper, man? Because the bottom line, bro, is it is your legacy you're talking about. This is your legacy, man. What are you gonna do? Just sleep on it?
Yep.
Hey, I don't know about you, Brent, but I got 3 kids, man. I'm married. I got 3 kids, dude. Hey, listen, my kids think I'm a superhero.
Yep.
They truly do, and I don't know how to feel about that, you know, because I've walked and I've served amongst some real superheroes, and I don't know how I feel about that, but they they give me a reason, man. You know, I live life. I don't expect them to ever make me proud. That's not
Yep.
their job, bro. My job is to make them proud.
Yep.
My job is to say, "Hey, kids, I want you to be proud that I'm your dad, and I need to work every day to make sure that's the case." They need to
It's
be
awesome.
proud of me. So that's how I feel about it, man. So when I talk about legacy, I'm taking it. It's serious, man. Like that's your legacy, bro. If I have a message for anybody that watches this, I want you to know you have a story to tell, and you're more than qualified to tell you that story. It's your story. And when I talk about the take point mindset, take point in your life, man. Whoever's telling you that, hey, Brent, you don't have a story to tell, man. You can't do that. You're not qualified. Well, I don't drink beer, but if I did, I'd say, hold my beer, right? I'll just say, hold my water, right? Here's my bottle of water. Hold on to it, man. I'm gonna write this book real quick and we'll see what you got to say about that.
Absolutely. Well, I was gonna give you the last word, but you already just killed that. Like, you did great, so you knocked it out of the park already. You beat me
Hey,
to it.
Brent, thanks for having me on, brother. I appreciate you, man.
Hey, listen, I'm gonna give you the last word anyways, but I just wanna
Okay.
if somebody wanted to join law enforcement today, what's your one thing of wisdom you'd tell them?
Know your why. Why is it you want to get into this profession? And really hone in on that. All right. There's one thing in this world that won't ever lie to you, and that's the mirror. All right. If you got a mirror in your bathroom, cool, go stand in the bathroom. Look yourself in the mirror, look yourself dead in the eye and say, hey, this is why I want to join this job. This is why I want to do this. And be brutally honest with yourself. All right. You got to be brutally honest with yourself, man, because if you're not brutally honest with yourself, you're lying to yourself. All right. The difference is you might realize it today or you might realize it in 5 years, but know your why. Okay. Why is it you want to do this? Once you understand and you have a solid grip on what your why is, never forget it. Never forget it. Carry it with you every day in the academy. Carry it with you every day on the street. And don't let anybody beat retired on duty take that from you. You know what your mission is. You know what your purpose is. And don't ever waver from that. That's why I'm not afraid. That's why I'm not afraid to speak. I'm not afraid to write a book. I'm not afraid to do these things because I know what my purpose is. And you're not going to take it from me.
Yep.
So that's my advice, man. That's my advice. Know your why, hone in on it, grip it tight, and don't ever lose sight of it.
Yep. You guys heard the man. He gave you some words of wisdom. Now use it. Mark, it's been real. We're gonna stay in contact. Let me know when that book's out, and we'll spread the good word for you. Okay.
All right, Brent. Yeah, you got my number too, man. So if you ever need anything or anything, man, you just reach out.
Absolutely. Have a good night.
Take care of yourself, brother. Be safe out there.
You too.
All right.